Welcome to At Your Library. I'm your host, Cathleen Clifford. Explore the world with the Groton Public Library's 4-part travel series, Discover the World. Our guest today is Barbara Nagy, who will be our first presenter in the new fall series. After working for the New London Day, covering Electric Boat and the Navy, Barbara joined the Hartford Courant in 1994. At the Courant, she wrote about aerospace manufacturing and the Connecticut economy. Currently a freelance writer, Barbara lives here in Groton. Her lifelong interest in history led her to work with the Groton Public Library 2 years ago on an oral history project about working at Electric Boat in the 1960s. We are delighted to welcome Barbara back to launch our travels on September 22nd. She will present Around the World with Amelia Earhart, my 10 weeks with the team that completed her 1937 adventure. Welcome, Barbara, to our show.
Thank you.
We are so interested in your program and the fact that you're kicking it off for us as a return presenter. Please tell us about your adventure and how you came to be part of it.
Well, it started in, I guess, 1996. There's a woman in Texas named Linda Finch who was always fascinated by Amelia Earhart and had acquired a I think it was 1937 Electra, nearly identical to the one that Amelia Earhart was flying when she was lost in 1937. And Linda's dream was to recreate and finish that flight. And she was looking for sponsors, so she went to the engine manufacturer, which was Pratt & Whitney in East Hartford. And she asked them if they would finance the trip. And they agreed to do that. And in the process of deciding who should go along and how it should be planned and everything, they realized that they needed a chase plane in case something happened to Linda. And they were trying to decide who should be on that plane. And I was covering Pratt & Whitney at the time. And so I was asked if I was interested in going along to document the flight. And also the Courant did a newspapers and education series. So I did daily postcards that kids in Connecticut could read and kind of follow along the flight.
Wow, that's a really interactive program for back then.
It was.
So your role on the trip, documenting for the Courant and sending the postcards. Is there anything else that you did along the way that was an essential part?
I wrote regular stories about the flight, maybe 1 or 2 a week. I also wrote a series of stories leading up to the flight, and then a few stories afterward. We did a little kind of call-out box on each country that we visited, so I did a lot of research beforehand to create those boxes. You know, population, a little bit about the history. So that was quite a bit of work too. And it was in the very early days of the internet. And so it gave us a chance to really, both myself and the photographer from the Courant who went along, we really pioneered kind of the use of the internet and you know, this kind of long distance transmission of data. And he in particular found it really challenging because he was trying to transmit photos. I was just transmitting text, but he was doing photos, which was a huge challenge because the connections were really tentative, tenuous, and it would take him, I don't remember, like 10 minutes to transmit one photo. And if he lost the connection in the midpoint, he had to start all over again.
Wow. When you think of things that take, you know, literally less than a second today, and all the work that went into it. Now, the photographer that went with you, he is also local. I understand he'll be joining you for the program.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about him and who else might have accompanied you on the trip.
Well, Tony worked at the Courant as a photographer for a long time. I'm not sure how long, but it was decades. And he often covered Pratt & Whitney stories with me. He was my photographer many, many times. So it was natural that he went along. I think he lives in Madison now, and he's retired, although he has his own video and photography business. And the others who went with us, Reed Dennis, he owned the Chase plane, which was an Albatross, which is I believe it's a Grumman, it's a seaplane, and they chose that because if the Electra went down, I mean, we were covering such wide areas of the ocean, the idea was that the Albatross would be able to land on the water.
Right, right.
So Reed went, he's a venture capitalist in the San Francisco area. He owned the plane and loves to fly. His wife Peggy went. There were a couple of film documentarians who went, and another photographer who was hired by Pratt & Whitney, and her name was Nancy Moran. And if I remember correctly, I think she's from Texas.
Wow, what a great group to experience
Yeah.
this. Do you still stay in touch with any of them?
Not so much, really. Just Tony. We did stay in touch, for a while afterward, but it's been 19 years now, and
Right.
time flies.
Exactly. Where did you specifically visit on your trip?
We started in Oakland and basically followed Amelia Earhart's path, the path of the original flight that as she planned it. So we went east through Miami and then down to South America, to Suriname, to Fortaleza, Brazil, crossed the ocean to Senegal, and even in 1997, I believe, I should have looked this up, but I think Amelia Earhart stopped in Tripoli.
Okay.
And in 1997, it was impossible to land in Libya.
Right,
even
of
then.
course.
So we went to, we had to refuel, so we went up to Greece, down to Egypt, across, I think the stop was the United Arab Emirates, might have been Dubai, and then Pakistan, Calcutta, across Southeast Asia, Singapore, Thailand, Australia, then north to Papua New Guinea, and then from there a couple of islands in the South Pacific, including Lae, where, that was in New Guinea, where Amelia Earhart last refueled. And then we stopped at Christmas Island, where she was supposed to refuel again, and then back to Hawaii, and then east to California, back to Oakland.
Do you have any favorite places that come to mind?
Yeah, it was really interesting. Some of the more, for me, I enjoy traveling, and I like kind of learning things and getting to know people. So the favorite places for me aren't so much places where you relax and have a good time, but they're more like where you learn things. And so Calcutta was really interesting. Suriname in South America was really interesting. Darwin, Australia was amazing. I never knew Australians liked Americans so much, but it goes back to World War II. They were so grateful for what we did in World War II.
That's a nice discovery to make.
Yeah. And New Guinea was really interesting. The mountains, the people, and then this little island where we stopped and refueled, Christmas Island. The people who live there out in the middle, really, I mean, we think of it as the middle of nowhere, to see how they live and wonder what that is like to grow up there was really interesting.
That sounds great. We're going to take a short break right now. Please join us in a few minutes when we come back to hear more of Barbara's adventures recreating the route of Amelia Earhart.
You're going to need me. You're going to need us. All of us. You're going to need our help with your water, your air, your food. You're going to need our determination, our compassion. You're going to need the next generation of leaders to face the challenges the future will bring. And we promise we'll be there when you need us.
I see my friends out there getting waves and talking about them, and I know exactly what they're doing and what they're feeling and everything. It's like, it's hard. I was diagnosed when I was 57. It was a surprise to me when they told me I had MS. It's like, you sure?
Well, the idea is this is a 360-degree virtual reality camera rig. Steve hasn't been able to ride a wave in way too many years, so now I'm going to ride a wave and we get to share it with him. Well, we're going to do something.
Just put that on your head. Whoa. Oh, this is unreal. Coming up, coming up, coming up. Boom. Nice. Nice. This is fantastic.
Yeah, let me set it up and you get another
Set it
ride.
up. Let's do that again.
Welcome back to At Your Library. Today, Barbara Nagy is with us talking about her adventure recreating the trip of Amelia Earhart. She will be presenting on September 22nd here at the library in our first of 4 travel series. Barbara, we're so interested in what's going on. I have so many questions for you. What was Linda Finch, the pilot, like? She chose to follow in Amelia Earhart's footsteps. So how was it like working with her and following her in her journey?
She was very driven. She had this goal that she wanted to accomplish, which was, flying around the world and finishing this flight. And there were a million details, especially the navigation issues. She did have GPS. There was some controversy in the aviation world about if you're trying to recreate this flight, should you be flying the plane as it was originally equipped or flying with modern instrumentation? And she chose to go the modern route, for good reasons. I mean, the safety and the reliability is there today, so why not take advantage of it? So she did, and like I said, she was very driven, very focused. She visited a lot of schools along the way and was really great with the kids, really able to kind of step back and relate to them at their level. I forgot to mention that there were some support staff for Linda that went along. She had a co-pilot in the Electra, Peter Cousins, and in the Albatross, Reed Dennis had a co-pilot named Bob Bell and a mechanic named Andy McPhee.
Oh, I bet those were very essential
staff
to have along.
Yeah.
How long was the trip?
It took about 10 weeks altogether. It would have been slightly shorter, except the Electra did have some mechanical issues along the way, especially in Calcutta. We ended up staying there for about a week, and I don't even remember what the issue was, but every day it would be you'd get up in the morning and go to the airport and see if the plane could fly. And you basically ended up sitting in the airport for half of the day waiting to see if they could get things resolved, because they were never quite sure how long it was going to take, and they would decide at some point it's not going to happen today, so go back to the hotel. And that was kind of grueling because on the one hand, you want to be able to leave as soon as you're ready to go, but on the other hand, you're in Calcutta and you really want to see Calcutta instead of sitting in the airport.
Right. How did everybody get along on a 10-week trip?
There were definitely some trying stretches, some real tensions. Linda was very concerned about the schedule and about her aircraft and making sure that she got where she had to go and that everybody was safe, and so that created a kind of underlying sense of urgency. And Reed, on the other hand, he was also concerned about his aircraft, but he was more, you know, like, let's relax and have fun. So we had two different personality types flying the two planes, and so that was definitely a challenge. But really, the rest of us, everybody got along great.
So what surprised you most about the trip?
I guess in all of these stops, realizing how different people are, but at the same time how there are more ways that we're alike than different. I mean, people everywhere had the same concerns, which really showed through in talking with parents of these school kids. And you know, the concern is their children's future and creating a stronger, better future for their kids. And in some of these places, you know, they were just amazed that somebody from America had even come to visit. In other places were a little less friendly, but still had the same concerns. And looking back, 19 years later, the thing that surprises me is how oblivious all of us were, everybody on the trip, to what was going to happen, you know, 4 years later in 2001. We just really did not, I mean, everything happening in the Mideast, you know, we knew what was going on, but really we had no awareness of how it was going to impact America. So that, and it was only 4 years later that 9/11 happened, but we were just totally, you know, not aware. We knew it was dangerous, but we had no idea that that danger was going to be coming, you know, to America. So that kind of shocks me in a way that we didn't see it coming or didn't see. I mean, we were really blind.
I mean, how could you even envision something like that?
Yeah.
So do you think that would be your biggest takeaway from the trip?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you really, after flying around the world like that in such a short time and getting, you know, a taste of things along the way, it really does kind of broaden your horizon on the world, and you start seeing the similarities and the differences. And the people were great along the way, really, really, you know, interested, and kind of this, among really everyone, kind of this yearning for a better future.
Did people along the way, they were familiar with Amelia Earhart? Did they understand what you were trying to do?
Most did, but I think it might have been because of the publicity beforehand.
Okay.
You know, Pratt & Whitney was doing all this logistics stuff and explaining to people before we would get somewhere what we were doing, and
Okay.
There were staff at all of the airports kind of prepared for us and everything, so people knew. In talking with people at different places along the way, I think there were people who probably hadn't heard of Amelia Earhart beforehand, but I think most had. And every once in a while you'd run into somebody who would say that their, you know, mother or father had seen Amelia Earhart when she landed in 1937, and that was really cool.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, what do you think happened to Amelia Earhart?
I think she ran out of gas and crashed in the Pacific, really. You know, her navigation equipment was not the best. Her navigation skills were not the best. I don't know, you know, why exactly. It's impossible to know exactly what happened, but it seems like the most likely outcome to me is that she and her navigator just, you know, something, either the equipment malfunctioned or they were using it wrong, or, you know, something along those lines.
Just something so basic like that could just come to the end.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
This is a really great topic. To learn more about Barbara's adventure, please join us here at the Groton Public Library on September 22nd at 7 p.m. This has been At Your Library. Thanks for checking in.